Welcome to Point Blank. This Thursday, we're going to look at what has happened in Nigeria in the last 365 days. A new government came to power. President Muhammad Buhari came to power, taking over for the first time from an incumbent in Nigeria. It had never happened before, so it was monumental in the way Nigeria is developing. It was a great thing to see that an incumbent lost an election. Pure numbers showed that he lost an election by almost 3 million votes. So it was a great thing to happen. Now, 365 days later, we're trying to analyze what has happened in the country. I'm not here to pass judgment. All I'm here to do is to give you what has happened in 365 days and let us make our own judgments, because this is only 25% of the course. I happen to teach in the university. 25% of the course, most times a lot of kids just kind of flunk that out and say, look, I have 75% to get better. But again, I'm not here to pass judgment, but I have someone that will help me pass judgment today. His name is Mr. Adebayo Ajagunna. What is Mr. Adebayo Ajagunna? First of all, let me say this. He's a social critic with new media. He's all over new media, but he has a very, very wealthy background in what he does. Today, he's the CEO of Bell USA Incorporated, based here in Houston. He's also, this company does business advisory and they are into consulting for usually companies out here in the US and in other places around the world who want to go invest in Africa. He used to be the commercial attaché to the largest embassy or to the largest foreign country in Nigeria, which is the British High Commission. He also has worked with Schlumberger, a major oil and gas producing company based out here in Houston. So let me welcome Mr. Adebayo Ajagunna to the program. Welcome to Point Blank.
Good afternoon, Prof. It's a pleasure to be with you.
But before we go on, let me take a quick commercial break because we got to make some money. So you just hang on there and we'll take a break and I'll be right back.
All right.
Welcome back again to Point Blank. On the line with me is Mr. Adebayo Ajagunna. But let me say to those watching, that ways you can reach me on my Twitter handle, which is PJ Osage. You can also hashtag the program as hashtag Point Blank, or you can watch us anytime, anywhere on MBCLiveTV.com. So those are the ways you can get to see us or get to contact us. Please do that. I'm always interested in getting your feedback. So, Mr. Ajagunna, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you, Prof.
Now,
as I said, it's a pleasure to be with you.
I really appreciate your coming on. It was on short notice, but we had to do this. 365 days of a president that I know, just not from your social imprint, but I know there are a lot of people that really supported President Buhari coming to power. And like I'm saying, I know you are one of those, you really have a belief in him. Give me, he's spent 25% of his time in office now. Give me a grade and, maybe back it up with the criteria in which you've graded. Give me an A to F, A, B, C, D, and F grade, and where you see him right now.
Thank you. Well, if you want to give a grade for, you probably also kind of like set a marking scale.
True. Yes.
So I would like to maybe tell you on what basis I will give the grade before I give the grade.
True.
I will give the grade on, I'll give it based on what I would call, expectations, right, and promises.
Yes.
And how, if there are path to that promise. So I would give, in my own opinion, on an A to F grade. For now, covering 25% of the syllabus, I will give a C minus, going to a D. Now, if you want me to break it down, I will break it down into 3 cardinal areas.
Do that very quickly. Do that very quickly.
And I will look at, we came and we talked about corruption.
Yes.
And on the fight against the corruption, I will give the government a B. the second most important thing to the fact, I think it's most important thing to Nigerians is the economy. On the economy, I will almost call them an F.
Interesting.
On security, I will score them a B. So if I aggregate those three scores, I'll probably get a C minus. And I will give you my reasons why I think that the economic policies, for now, have not really taken into cognizance the challenges they were going to face.
Well, Mr. Ajagunna, just before you do that, let me chip in here, because I would think that the economy is actually the most difficult to always rise in any situation. I mean, even if you look at the American system some 8 years ago, it's always the slowest thing that an administration can show.
It's always the most difficult to show progress, but you can always track direction.
Okay, good.
You understand what I'm saying?
Policy direction, okay.
On the basis of the direction, there are some basic indices of the economy. I understand, an effort to restrict, excess flow of liquidity from all the other, illegitimate sources into the economy. But one cardinal point of the economy where we are failing is the monetary policy in respect of the exchange rate.
Okay.
Right? And my problem is not about the value of the exchange rate. A naira to a dollar is just a number. And those numbers are based on, demand and supply. If there's no demand for the dollar, it will not be demanded. But if there's a demand for it. So the government, on one point, is struggling, to create an environment where our appetite for the dollar is curbed, because we're an essentially importing economy. We import everything from the gasoline we put in our cars to some of the basic things that we can produce. So that has put unnecessary strain on our external currency. But what I quarrel with is the reluctance of the government to embrace what I call a floating exchange rate. They create an artificial exchange rate. For example, this morning I know somebody who tried to get money out of their GT Bank account.
Yes.
They couldn't get it. Why? Because the official rate is 199 to a dollar. GT Bank was not willing to pay him 199. So all the ATMs he put his money this morning in Houston, it didn't work. So he called GT Bank and they said, well, you know the truth? That 199 official rate is artificial.
True.
When people are paying 340 naira to a dollar, that is the real exchange rate. Now it is a massive inflation, but that is the truth. If we create a situation where we have two exchange rates, people will take advantage of it, and it's already happening.
Oh no, we both live here in America. It's what the Americans call loophole.
Yes,
which is not really legal, but people will take advantage of it.
It is a massive loophole that will rubbish every effort to clean the table in respect of corruption and things away. Because as long as it is there, people want the US dollars, and some people have access to get it at 199, and it is selling on the street at 340 naira. It's made for criminal elements. It's made for black marketeers. That's my opinion. So on that's why
you give an F there.
Yeah, I give an F, because you see, you can already see the effect. Last week, United Airlines pulled out of Nigeria.
Yes.
It was because they were finding it difficult to remit their income.
I can imagine.
Right? Because there was no, at the available exchange rate, it wasn't there. Right? And Iberia had pulled out. British Airways is completely looking at it. And I understand in the whole aviation industry, there's a $575 million debt in remittances back to those companies.
That's $500 million. That's a good chunk of money. That's a good chunk of money.
All sitting down, finding challenges to be remitted, principally because of the, so if we know the exchange rate is 400 naira to a dollar, let's know it's 400 naira to a dollar. Let one person not be able to access it at 150, and then the rest of us have to access it at 340.
Well, Mr. Ajagunna, let me take another quick break. When we come back, we'll really kind of finish on the issue of the economic side, and I want us to go into corruption because you remember, President Buhari is really standing, or he came to power on a tripod, on three legs of what he really wants to fight. I mean, the economy and to diversify the economy, and like you said, they are struggling on that because of this exchange rate issue. So let us look at the other two areas, which will be the security and corruption. So look, people of Houston and all those watching this program, you are listening to Mr. Adebayo Ajagunna. We'll be right back to continue because this is very interesting. I mean, we're looking at 365 days of President Buhari. So let's take that quick break and we'll be back. Welcome back to Point Blank. This is your regular Thursday program where, look, hey, we're hitting it as it is. I mean, I have as my guest, even though it's online, but he just seems to be next to me. It seems as if we're in a kind of beer parlor, really chatting about the issues of Nigeria, which a lot of us do. I mean, Nigeria seems to be always on our mind, whether we're at home or even in the diaspora as we are in. So I welcome back on online. On a phone line, really, Mr. Adebayo Ajagunna, you were still talking about the exchange rate and how that really impacts building a new economy. Because that's, I think, what you are talking about. We need to build a new economy. Fortunately, this is actually the line in which you are in, trying to advise companies out here who want to take money back into Nigeria, but they need the stability of monetary policy. Is that not what you are really saying?
Exactly. So on the economy, I mean, I see the effort to diversify, but we need to actually embrace, creating a stable monetary policy. Once we get that, every other thing else will go. So based on that, please hold on. So based on that, I will take the second tripod of the Buhari economy, which is the challenge against corruption. Right?
Good. Let's get into that. But let me phrase the question this way for you on the one of corruption. I mean, there was no doubt that this country for years now has been being run to the ground by those that lead us. I mean, now, of course, our leaders, and when I talk about leaders, I talk about political leaders, I talk about those in the civil service, even those in private business. Everybody can remember the time we had savings and loans, banking, savings and loans in the housing industry, how that one was badly mismanaged due to corruption. But, so Nigeria has always had its fair share of corruption, both in the private and public sector. But this time around, the president came into power saying this is something we need to stop in order to grow. It is like, let's stop the bleeding. And that is what, he's trying to do. So you give me your general view of where we are now and where you think we need to get to.
I think, in my opinion, this is the biggest mountain we have to climb. Because whether we like it or not, corruption is an institution in Nigeria. I'm sorry to say.
Fantastically corrupt,
Starting from the teacher in the university who will sell handouts to his students. If they don't buy the handout, they don't pass. We like to point fingers at the government.
True.
Starting from the gate man in the Federal Ministry of Works, if you don't give him 10 naira, he's not going to open the door for you. Starting from the policeman you meet on the road, starting from the guy from NEPA, it's an institution. When we like to talk about corruption, we like to talk about other people's corruption. But corruption is endemic. It's a part of all of us. Mm-hmm. And what has happened, I actually was a witness to the creation of the EFCC, right?
Yes.
And I was privileged to meet the pioneer chairman of the EFCC in my capacity then as the commercial attaché in the British High Commission in Abuja. Because the British government gave EFCC institutional funding when they wanted to start.
Yeah, I remember that.
And they built a training center for them in Abuja.
Yes, I remember that.
So, and when we came, the first engagement we had with him, we had heard then that he had been... In fact, what made us want to see who this fellow was we heard that somebody offered him $15 million in bribe and he took it to the CBN and took it as evidence to further prosecute that person who was the state governor then. That person is serving a prison term now in the UK.
Yes.
And, it has never been heard before. I mean, Nigeria, somebody gave you $15 million drive. So the British paid attention to this fellow. And this man made a statement the first time we met, me and him and the British High Commissioner and a few other people. He said something. The laws that are meant to tackle corruption in Nigeria are not adequate. They are not strong enough.
God bless you on that one. I said, God bless you on that one, because 2 programs ago, I did that and I said, we just don't have enough laws.
The laws just don't work.
Yes.
Because you would see these guys, if you steal enough money, you sit it out. I think they just jailed some guy, the former Nimasa MD.
Yes, I saw
for
that.
a couple of billions. They gave him 5 years. That's even extreme. Some of these years, whatever, you steal a couple of billions, you get 2 years, right? The case has been in court for 2 years, right? So by the time they're passing the judgment on you, you're probably walking out free. So these guys don't feel any remorse. Every time you have a restraint to do something illegal, if you are in this country, it's because you know that the likelihood of you being punished is very high.
Extremely
high. In
high.
Nigeria, it's the opposite, right? So he, at that time, shared an insight with us. He said, look, why do these people steal the money? Because they want it. They want to live with it. They want to, enjoy the luxury of it. So if the law does not allow me to jail them satisfactorily, I will take as much of the money as I can from them.
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying? And that was the strategy, right? Because they will go to court, we'll be in court for 7 years, but if every single asset I can trace, right, I can confiscate, right, then they don't have access to that money. That money will come back to our people. So you see, this is a hydra head. It is not something that we can win this battle in 1 year. We can't even win it under the tenure of this presidency.
It has to be built culturally too, because like you said,
we have to lay the foundations, right? We have to lay the foundations.
You said it well at the beginning.
And I believe on laying that foundations, this government is doing an excellent job. The first thing you would see was when they started this TSA, right? You don't want to know about ghost workers. You don't want to know. I think in Plateau State yesterday, one particular individual, 1,300 ghost workers were traced to one single person in Plateau State. 1,300 in Kogi State.
Yes,
they are doing the same thing right now. The governor is doing an audit. Because there is no more money, everybody is now sitting up. You understand? Then you find 3 civil servants are in custody of 800 ghost workers' salaries. And they have been collecting these salaries for ages.
Let me throw in a little bit of a jab there. When I taught in Chicago, I don't know whether they still continued, but once every 3 years in Chicago, everybody that works for the city must come and take his salary in cash. Because of ghost workers too. Now, so Chicago is known as one of the most corrupt cities in America.
You see, we are all very excited about politicians, right? They are the face of corruption we see.
True.
We celebrated cases, big names, yeah. But look, let me tell you, when a minister is appointed, I lived in Abuja for 16 years. When a minister is appointed and he gets into power, right? When he walks into that ministry that first day, right, he doesn't have a clue.
The
institution of corruption is run by civil servants.
Well, a lot of people say that,
I'm telling you, I know for a fact, right? So these guys, they are the ones who will even tell the minister, this is what you need to do, and this is what you need to do. You see that structure is being dismantled. The entire TSA and the open process of public procurement now has put a complete stopgap into that system. That's why we are beginning to discover that one person is sitting down on like 10,000 people's pensions.
Look,
these guys, you've never had their names before.
Yeah, of course.
You don't know them. You've heard of Desiani, you've heard of all these people. These ones are the celebrated politically exposed people.
Bayo, again, let me quickly take a break and let me come to another very important issue. It has to do with the naira and dollar, but it really has more to do with the way Nigerians have looked at Nigeria for a long time, and that is the removal, kind of fuel subsidy, which happened first in 2012, which was rejected boldly and forcefully by a lot of people, and it has now been removed again 4 years later. So we'll come back and we'll discuss that because that is very important, and because I also know that you were a major part of the resistance in 2012. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'll talk to Mr. Adebayo Ajagunna about what his position was in 2012 and what it is now in 2016 on fuel subsidy removal. So we'll take that break and we'll be right back.
Okay.
This has been an interesting Thursday so far. On the line with me is Mr. Adebayo Ajagunna, who's the CEO of Bell USA Incorporated, based here in Houston. This is a company that does business advisory and consulting work for mostly companies that want to invest in Africa, just not in Nigeria, but in Africa. So that means they're trying to deal with dollar, and in the case of Nigeria, naira. So they need some stability. Mr. Ajagunna has been very, very explicit on his feelings about what that is doing to our economy, and that which is either slowing it down. Remember, he gave the economy under this new president after 365 days an F. And he's explained it very well. And I hope most of you, look, my program is not to tell you what to think. This program is just to tell you how I personally see things and how my guests that come on occasionally, how they see things. Again, welcome back, Mr. Bayo.
Thank you, Prof.
Now, let us go to 2012. I have seen and read so many things about your participation in the subsidy removal in 2012 by President Jonathan at that time.
Yep.
Now, in 2016, we've had the same subsidy removed, and both of them take really very different, how would I put it, very different pictures. One was aggressively resisted, and I'm not going to say wholeheartedly received, but it has been received and we've kind of moved on. So fuel is now 145 per liter, 147, but it's about 150. Now, can you give me really what you saw in 2012 and what you see today about fuel subsidy removal?
Okay. Thank you very much. I would say something. I believe in free market.
Good.
And fuel subsidy, any kind of economic subsidy, particularly in a market that doesn't manage it properly, is an anomaly.
Yeah.
And it will always come back to bite you.
Mm-hmm.
So I was actually not against the removal of subsidy in 2012. I was against passing over the cost to the poor people. That I want to clarify that very clearly.
Okay.
And what is different in 2012 and what is different in 2016, I will tell you. Before I worked for the British, my last job was with the Bureau of Public Enterprises in the presidency in Abuja, and we were mandated to privatize some of the public enterprise. Before we started thinking straight, Nigeria owned 1,000 companies that should actually be commercial enterprises. So we owned, our government owned companies, from cement companies to hotels to airlines, businesses that the government had no need being in, right?
Yes.
And that was the engine room of what destroyed our economy, right? So when we started to think straight, and we also learned from perhaps the British, because Margaret Thatcher also went through a very rigorous privatization program that changed the British economy.
I remember
we decided to follow that path. And Bolanle Onoguruwa, who later became the DG of Bureau of Public Enterprises, was the first person that was appointed as the director of the Department of Oil and Gas. in Bureau of Public Enterprises then, who our mandate then was to privatize all the enterprises in that sector, upstream and downstream, and some of the service companies, and even some of the byproduct companies like LMA Petrochemical. So I'm a firm believer in the removal of subsidy. Now, let me tell you why. It's very simple. There is nothing to refining. Refining is manufacturing, right? Manufacturing is turning raw material to a finished product that is usable. In the case of refining, it is crude oil to petrol or kerosene or diesel, right?
Yes.
It is not the business of government to run it, right? But when we had more money than brains, we built those 3 refineries, right?
No, hold on. I want you to say that again. When we had more money than
brains.
Okay, good. I just wanted the clarity on that. And I will give you your Twitter handle and website later so people can talk to you about that so that they don't tell me that I'm the one being rude. Go ahead. That's a great statement.
Refineries. When we built those refineries, we did whatever we liked with it. We called the products, whatever price we wanted. So that's what we gave back to our people. But by and large, we created something that killed our economy. And it was simple as this. Any other person who wanted to invest in refining will not come to Nigeria because Nigeria operated a price control structure in product. So it's like a bakery. You understand what I'm saying? If I'm baking bread, you can't tell me how much I'm going to sell bread.
True.
It is my cost of production vis-a-vis me being able to compete with other people, right? You understand what I'm saying, right? So I will price myself so that I can remain in the market. But we let only government price. Then we let only government produce for a long time until our refineries couldn't produce. Then we started to import. Then each time we go and import this cargo, we will buy. Our buying hub is in Europe, mostly Rotterdam, Geneva, right? That's where we order these cargoes from, right?
Yes.
We buy these cargoes at whatever the world is selling it. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if the cargo costs $600 a ton, we buy $600 a ton. Then we bring it back home. Then we have to sell it to the people at $250 a ton.
And lose $400.
Because that is what the price says. I'm just giving you hypothetical figures, but it has been as bad as that.
I understand. Look, I'm a free marketeer. I believe in what you're saying.
So that is what we have been doing with subsidy forever, right? And what the opportunity cost for subsidy has been schools, roads, hospitals, bridges, the things we desire, power. Right, because the bill of subsidy, I think last year alone was close to about $6 to $10 billion US. I can't remember the exact figure.
That's a third of our budget.
Yeah, so it was just madness. So as I said, when oil was selling for $140, it was okay. We could throw that money away. We didn't invest that money. We spent all our income subsidizing the ones we didn't steal. We subsidized. So when we wanted to remove subsidy in 2012, if you notice something, there's been a pattern. From Babangida, every government in Nigeria made an effort to remove subsidy.
True.
They just could not handle the social
and the political fallout.
Yes, thank you. And it was all because the people did not trust them. Right? Because if the subsidy will have an effect on my life, your life, your sister's life, everybody in the streets in Nigeria. So if you're asking me to tighten my belt, I want to see a responsible government. So what was different in 2012 and 2016 was the function of trust.
I mean, and look, I know a lot of people have tried to explain why it has been different. But this is the first time that I'm really hearing it in one word, really, trust. This government is better.
Trust was what was missing in 2012.
Yeah, this government is not trusted.
The people knew that, people know the economics. And people know that for real, look, if we, on a good day, I know a lot about the oil industry. I'm working with a couple of companies that are, in that industry in Nigeria. Averagely, a cargo that we get to Nigeria today will cost about $540 a ton, a metric ton, right? If you do that in naira to liter, you will be landing that cargo in Nigeria at about 114 naira a liter outside bar.
No, look, Bayo, let me take another quick break. This is going to be very, very short because I have to come back and wrap up with you. But look, you have really explained the difference between 2012 and 2016. Really the same policy, but you use the word trust. I mean, look, there's nothing that is bigger in one's life or in one's everyday life, really, other than trust. When people trust you, they work with you. When people don't trust you, you are in trouble.
People just believe that, okay, if we will sacrifice, we know that this money will probably not end in private pockets. That's just it.
So
that's
look,
the difference.
I'm going to take one last break. With my, those of you watching, and I hope you have really been tuned into what Mr. Ajagunna has been saying about the key issues about the last 365 days of President Buhari. It is very interesting that we have someone that actually lives out here now for the most part, but is so in tune with what goes on within our system, not just because of his personal experience having worked with the system in Nigeria, but really because of his general interest as a Nigerian to what still goes on back home, even though he lives here. So we'll take one last break. When I come back, I'm going to ask Mr. Ajagunna. There are a few issues that are creeping up security-wise. We have what these people, look, again, I'm going to get a few hate tweets and all that. These people that call themselves the Avengers.
If you don't get it, that means your program is not good.
Yeah, they call themselves the Avengers. I don't know where they, are they comics? Are they from a comic or something? But we also have the issue of the cattle herdsmen, that we hear creating problems. And then we'll go back to one other issue, the so-called fight for Biafra. So when we come back, those are the three things we're going to touch on in order to come to a conclusion with Mr. Adebayo Ajagunna. Just wait, sit tight, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Point Blank. We are going to, this is the last segment of this show this Thursday. On the line still with me is Mr. Adebayo Ajagunna, who's I call him a social commentator, but a social commentator on new media. He's all over the place with new media. Anyone that has a smartphone or has any kind of internet connection can always tap in and find Mr. Adebayo Ajagunna always making commentary about something, which is great. That's the world we live in today, and I really appreciate him joining me this evening. Now, Bayo,
yes,
there are new issues cropping up security-wise in Nigeria. Who are these people calling themselves the Avengers? I just wonder, who are they? Where did they come from?
I'm going to put the caveat. This is my opinion.
Yeah.
And my opinion is based on my knowledge of the local issues going back.
Yes.
Everything you see is really what I call an extended reaction to some people who were not prepared for
the change,
the results of the elections. Yes. And in lots of ways, it's like a knee-jerk reaction when you kill a chicken or something. Even while it's dying, it's going to throw some kind of tantrum if you don't put it, on the ground. And, if you shake up a system that is already settled also, you need to expect some reactions. People use the phrase, when you fight corruption, corruption fights you back.
Yes.
Niger Delta Avengers, in my opinion, I know nothing beyond a group of people who have perhaps access to some money, which was part of some of the public funds that ended up in private pockets in the last administration, who feel that this government is not to their favor, and they capitalize on some of our natural biases. The average Nigerian is very emotional. When you talk about ethnicity and religion, we get very, very excited.
Yeah, we get carried away. True.
Yeah, we become irrational. So there are issues of every time there is somebody in power from one region, the other region always has some amount of suspicion. So what I see is this. They are rekindling something that has worked for their predecessors, the men Danko, right, who held the government to ransom, because our economic base is still oil, and by sabotaging oil installations, right, they put the government in a situation where they need to pay attention to what they're saying.
True.
But I don't see any altruistic objective behind any of their actions, because I've listened to them. I saw the first set of demands. I mean, when you make an organization list a set of demands, as even if you're a terrorist organization, and the first thing, they should give an apology to somebody that was convicted of corruption, or apologize to Alamasia. Then I know you're not serious people.
And that's why I said they were like Avengers.
It was one of the first. I mean, I just when I saw that, I saw all the things they listed, and I'm like, well, these guys. And the truth of the matter is that the Niger Delta had a golden opportunity, 6 years. Goodluck Jonathan was the president of Nigeria 6 years, and in the beginning of the Niger Delta, he didn't really do much for his people. I saw Amina Ali, who is the Minister for Millennium Development, go sign a contract with the company to start to clean up Ogoni land.
Yeah.
About 4 months ago, right? In the 6 years of the president of Nigeria coming from that region, there was no cleanup in that area, right?
Well, look, let's leave the Avengers alone, because you have actually summed it up properly that these are just a bunch of disgruntled young men that have a little bit of stolen money.
They are making an impact because they are blowing. They are blowing pipelines. They are blowing power pipelines. So they are really making an impact. So it depends on how the government wants to handle it. I would suspect that the government will not sit down and allow them to fester.
We have an ex-general as president, so I'm sure he will be able to figure how to deal with that. Without causing a lot of hardship to innocent people. But just before we go, give me a little take on this. I don't particularly, I know most of the people that beat cattle down the roads in Lagos and all that are always from the north. They are usually northerners. But they are all of a sudden titled Fulani herdsmen and all that. I'm just going to refer to them as, herdsmen usually from the northern. We've always said, look, you remember how we described the foot of a cow as a babakanu. Because we believe it is coming from that place and all that. So give me a quick take, as just as a parting comment, on the herdsmen or the so-called Fulani herdsmen. What do you believe and what don't you believe about it?
Okay, I can tell you for free, nothing has changed from now till 10 years ago. There's only one thing that has changed, and I'll tell you what has changed. Now, you see, if you and I grew up in Nigeria, we have encountered Fulani guys many times. They are mostly funny-looking, nice people, right? Dress funny with their funny hair, carry their stick, right? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No problem with anybody. But along the way, there have been issues of resource allocation between. I'm an agronomist by training, so people who farm and the people who herd, when you kind of like, they are competing for resource, they are competing for land, they are competing for space. So in many of these places, right, there have been some clashes between these people, right? And then there are also, there's something we also need to understand. They are also bandits who are not Nigerians, who come from Niger, right? These are the guys who mostly you see with arms. They don't have any cattle, right? They are Fulani, but they are not Nigerians, right? These guys have been terrorists for over 10 years. They've attacked a luxurious bus I entered on the way to Abuja about 16 years ago. I've seen it. And they killed over 10 people. So you see, what we see is this. I would like us to address this as a crime, right? There is crime, there is murder. Anybody who willfully kills another person is murder, right? Whether it's Fulani, Akatu, Ijo, it doesn't matter, right? Anybody who goes into another man's farm, puts cattle in there and the cattle destroys his crop, that's willful damage of another man's property.
Look,
right?
I have to stop you here. Look, this has been an interesting, really discussion, that you have brought to this program today. Look, I cannot thank you enough, and I cannot really appreciate you enough, and I hope when I eventually give out your website and we post on our own Facebook page all about you and all that. I hope people would visit your website and actually even get to talk to you on social media too. So look, Bayo, let me again thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you
I really
very much,
appreciate
Prof.
it. Yeah.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Point Blank this Thursday has been phenomenal. I mean, on the line with me was Mr. Adebayo Ajagunna, who's really a social critic. I mean, he's all over new media, like I had described him or explained who he is. He has a lot of experience, just not in the Nigerian system, but in the system here in America. As you know, he has touched on everything we have done in the last 365 days with this new government in power. Now, let me quickly give you my take on the whole thing about President Buhari's 25% of his, he's now spent 25% of his term in office. As a former lecturer, I do a lot of grading. But here is one that I would happily put an incomplete as my grade so far. With 25% gone or 25% completed, I cannot grade President Buhari. There are a lot of things that I have been disappointed with, and there are a lot of things I've said, okay, we seem to be on the right path. That's really all I need now. You heard Mr. Ajagunna talk about when he first met with the first ESCC chairman, that there were not strong enough laws to catch Nigerians in corruption. I have stressed that from day one, that the president the president right now and the people under him in the Attorney General's office or Professor Ishe, who he appointed as someone who's got to advise him on corruption laws and all that, that we still haven't tried to strengthen our laws or actually recreate laws that would actually catch people. I have said this many times on this program, that can anybody in Nigeria or here in America tell me under which law will Chief Falaye ever be persecuted? He said he got 100 million from Dansuki. There's no law that can convict him. In America, the law that will convict Falaye will be an IRS law, that they will convert that 100 million into income which he never paid taxes on, and he will go to jail. That is how we do things out here in America. Nigeria has to be able to brush up those things and get things right. But so far, for 365 days, I would give President Buhari an incomplete grade. Look, it's been a wonderful program. I'm happy to be here. I'll see you all next week, Thursday. But remember, this is Point Blank. It's the program in which I tell you things the way I see them. You can always tweet at me at PJ Osage. You can go to our website and watch this when it is released or when, at any time, anywhere around the world. www.mbclivetv.com. Also, #Point Blank. I'll see you all again next week, Thursday. Bye-bye for now.